NBC News now has reviewed an autopsy report that reveals more about the death of Trayvon Martin during his encounter with George Zimmerman. Now the teenager's parents are calling for the release of all the evidence in this case. NBC's Kerry Sanders is in Daytona Beach, Florida this morning. Kerry, good morning to you.
Well, good morning, Matt. Trayvon Martin's parents have not seen the medical examiner's report that was prepared here. But the fact that others have, including NBC News, has their attorney telling NBC News that it's enough. They now want all of the documents released. Benjamin Crump tells NBC News that they want full transparency of all the records because anything short of that is manipulation. When George Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin, the state attorney first concluded there would be no charges. And key to his decision was the medical examiner's report, which was completed nearly 3 weeks after the shooting. The very same report was viewed by the special prosecutor who charged Zimmerman in April. While the multi-page autopsy is sealed by court order, NBC News was given access to read it. It says in part, the teenager was killed by a penetrating gunshot wound to the chest. The entrance wound located on his left chest, 17 inches below the head. The single bullet passed directly from the front to the back, through his lungs, creating perforations. The only injuries to Trayvon Martin are from the gunshot and to one knuckle, a 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch abrasion on the fourth finger in the ring area. Trayvon's gunshot wound entrance of intermediate range. How close was that? The medical examiner's report says there was a soot ring abrasion and a 2-inch by 2-inch area of stippling. Vincent DeMaio is a gunshot residue expert and the former chief medical examiner in Bexar County, Texas.
Stippling or powder tattooing are marks on the skin due to unburnt grains of powder emerging from the muzzle of the gun. Based on the size of the pattern, the range was most likely between 2 and 4 inches.
Usually in Florida, the medical examiner's report and the recently revealed medical records that showed George Zimmerman likely had a broken nose and black eyes, all of those reports and more would be part of the public record. But in this case, a unique effort to prevent the release of records has resulted in selective leaks, the sort that Trayvon Martin's family lawyer says could be designed to taint a jury pool.
What I think is more of a question is the leak of the information, what it's purported to prove.
Zimmerman's defense attorney Mark O'Mara will not speak out on the information contained in the leaked reports, but says the 67 CDs filled with investigative notes are shaping his defense.
If the evidence supports it, certainly we'll look into filing stand your ground and whatever other motions may be appropriate.
While both the defense and prosecution said they wanted these reports sealed to protect all of the witnesses' names, many legal observers say it appears these leaks are simply strategic.
Hey everyone. So you guys just watched the news clip on the latest information regarding the Trayvon Martin case. Frankly, I am not surprised that NBC News was able to obtain information regarding this case and the family did not have that information prior to it being released in the news media. It just shows me that there are no rules to this game. Let me just start with NBC News received documents regarding this case that were supposed to be off limits, undisclosed to the public. The family nor their attorneys had access to this information, which clearly means that someone broke the law when they leaked that information to NBC. And if they are breaking laws this early in the case, it's anyone's guess as to how this case will end. And just look at Zimmerman. I mean, if you go back into this video footage and you take a look at him with those psychotic eyeballs bulging out of their sockets, he is said to be on psych meds. I wonder if he took them the day he shot Trayvon Martin. The only injuries noted to Trayvon Martin was the gunshot wound and one knuckle. What that says to me is that George Zimmerman was not beaten as he and his reps have claimed. If that were the case, Trayvon Martin would have had more knuckles bruised than just that one. If it's as violent a fight as they have made it out to be, he would have been bruised more on his hands. Anyone who's ever been in a fight knows that, especially on to the degree in which George Zimmerman claims he was beat. And considering George said his head was being slammed against the pavement by a gloveless Trayvon Martin, it's safe to conclude he would have had scrapes on the sides of his hands from them rubbing against the cement. Anyone that's been in a street fight knows that you will have injuries to your hands, especially if you're beating someone to the point where you've broken their nose, where you've blackened both their eyes, as he's claiming, where you've injured the back of their head from pounding it against the cement. I'm just having a hard time believing George Zimmerman, and unfortunately he is the only one left to tell the story, and I just don't believe that we are getting the truth. Black eye injuries from a beating are usually accommodated by swelling. It's an obvious bruise, rarely subtle. If gotten from a beating, look at the footage of George Zimmerman walking into the police station. I do not see a face with 2 black eyes and a broken nose. I believe the family doctor that examined him and wrote that George had these injuries was lying. And the only way I would believe it is if they produced authentic photographs, time and date stamped, showing George Zimmerman's noted injuries. I'm not saying there was no physical altercation, but I'm contending his injuries are exaggerated in a desperate attempt to fall within the protection of the stand your ground law and justify his cold-blooded murder. See, in order for him to say, hey, I was standing my ground, he would have to say that he was also being attacked. The problem is, from all accounts, including his own phone call to 911, he was actually the aggressor. He was told that they didn't need him to follow Trayvon Martin, and yet he followed him in his car. And when he could no longer follow him in his car, he got out of his car and followed him on foot. That is not protected under the stand your ground law. In actuality, Trayvon Martin was protected under the stand your ground law. George Zimmerman is not protected under this law, and it would be breaking the law if he became acquitted because of them allowing him to use this law in his defense.